Time to set foot inside the morgue with your hosts, Lee, Carl, and Rob.
It's that time. Christmas time is here. Everybody knows there's not a better time of year. Hear that sleigh. Santa's on his way. Hip, hip, hooray for Christmas vacation. Got a ton of stuff to celebrate. Now it's getting closer, I can't wait. Gonna make this holiday as perfect as can be.
Welcome to the Manchester Movie Morgue Christmas Drunkcast Spectacular. And this time we are reviewing National Lampoons Christmas Vacation, starring Chevy Chase. But first of all, before we get into that, we're going to discuss what we've been watching during the week. Rob, will you start us off? What have you been watching?
Yeah, I've this week I've OD'd on Christmas on purpose, actually. So obviously I did Christmas Vacation for the first time in a while for this pod. I did The Bishop's Wife with David Niven and Cary Grant.
So you did The Bishop's Wife? We're talking about films here, Rob. Come on.
The Dirty Bishop's Wife. But yeah, it's a strange one, that, because I watched it, and it's about an angel, Cary Grant, who is trying to fix this marriage of this bishop who's trying to save a cathedral. But all the way through, he's practically trying to pull the wife. It really charms her. And I thought it was going to go the other way. I thought he was going to completely seduce her and then murder the bishop, but he doesn't do that, of course. It ends up quite smiling.
Did he get his wings at any point?
There's no wings. But I did watch. I also watched The Lemon Drop Kid, which is probably one of my favourite Christmas films with Bob Hope. The only problem is you have to really stomach a lot of Bob Hope in that film. There's a lot of gurning at the camera, and there's a lot of looking at, and a lot of winks and nods, and also all the women find him irresistible in the film, even though he's got a really big head and a massive chin. But that's just Bob Hope. So what else did I watch? The other Christmas film I saw, Christmas Chronicles 2 with Kurt Russell, which is it's the most saccharine, smoky
It is,
thing.
yeah. I tried to watch it this week, and it was just so sugary. I just had to turn it off. I wasn't in the mood.
You are literally shitting tinsel at the end.
It's diabetes inducing, I think.
Guys, how sugary, saccharine is it compared to Christmas Chronicles 1?
It's more so. There's a scene where he just totally seduces a whole airport. Actually, he puts the whole airport. He goes back in time and he takes the whole airport over with mind control. It's almost like an exorcism, or like the scene from Beetlejuice when when Beetlejuice takes over the dinner party. He does this with a whole airport of staff and security guards and everyone. They're all dancing on stage and singing. It's totally dangerous. It's probably like terrorists entering the country or something. But it's also improved the Christmas spirit. So, but yeah, I mean, unless you're a complete hardened cynic, at the end of the film, you feel quite a little bit fuzzy inside. Or maybe well, I did.
Is that just the beer? Is that just the beer you've been consuming tonight, Rob?
I feel funny.
I think I watch anything else. No, I also saw earlier this evening. I saw the new Netflix movie with Isla Fisher in, which is called Godmothered, where it's a trainee fairy godmother comes to Boston to save Isla Fisher and meet her Prince Charming and stuff. It's okay. It's okay. It's not terrible, but it's okay.
Did Sacha Baron Cohen make an appearance at any point?
No, but I spent most of the film thinking he's a lucky man. Yeah,
he is a very lucky man, isn't he? Yeah.
Are there any displays in this film, of flesh or no? Okay.
It's quite fleshless. Yeah, I mean it's schmaltzy. I mean, the message of the film actually isn't a bad one, because rather than the big overall message is that your Prince Charming it's about happily ever after. It's not about finding someone. It's about being happy in yourself, which is actually not a terrible message.
That is the worst message. We need different messages coming from our films.
Yeah, you've got to live your best life, Rob. You've got to beat everybody in Instagram. It's not about it's about how good your life looks.
And then you can start to brainwash them, can't you?
It's all about subscribers. That's it. But yeah, that's where I'm up to. And basically, I'm trying to force the Christmas spirit down my throat. So I've still not watched It's a Wonderful Life this year, and I've not watched Planes, Trains and Automobiles yet. Again, for the 14th time. So that's what I'm up to.
You are that movie's biggest fan, so I will look forward to reviewing that with you. Carl, what did you watch this week?
I've not really been watching the typical Christmas fare yet. I'm sure I will. I've gone to a couple of my recent Blu-ray purchases from both from 88 Films in the UK, who are putting out some good films at the moment. The first one's called New Year's Evil, which is kind of seasonal, I suppose, and it's a slasher film from 1980 about this killer who's trying to kill people on the stroke of midnight in different time zones in the US. A couple of neat and new kind of and different angles on it make it quite interesting, and it's got a decent new wave punk soundtrack.
So is this a killer who's looking to sort of boost his air miles?
What's he trying to do? I don't want to ruin it for anyone, especially if you've not seen it. It kind of transpires who this character is later on in the film, but you kind of the killer's not hidden under a mask or anything like that. You kind of know who the killer is early on, but later on their actual identity is something of a surprise. And the ending's quite good as well, because it where one killer finishes, another one kind of is about to take on the mantle, as it were. So it's a bit kind of Friday the 13th Part 1-esque in that regard. But yeah, no, it was a good fun film.
Yeah. Any big names in that one, or
no, not really. The lead actress is called Ros Kelly, and apparently she had a role on Happy Days as the Fonzie's girlfriend for some episodes of a particular series.
He had so many.
He did, and he had that shark that he jumped a bit later on.
my favorite girlfriend. He had Susie Quattro for a little bit, didn't he?
That's right, he did. Yes, yeah. So yeah, to be honest, I've not seen her in Happy Days. That was something I read about her. But yeah, it's not a bad film. And the other one I saw was a Jackie Chan film called New Fist of Fury, which is Jackie Chan's first starring role. But it's kind of like what you call a Bruce Exploitation film as well, where it's kind of like it's a sequel to Bruce Lee's Fist of Fury. They kind of introduce Jackie Chan as try and make him to be kind of the new Bruce Lee. And of course, we know with the fullness of time that Jackie Chan's kind of like he's a more comedic martial arts actor who kind of he's more in common with like Buster Keaton and Three Stooges probably than Bruce Lee. So it's an interesting film in some regards. It's maybe a bit overlong, but yeah, that was those are two films I watched this week. Both new films, New Year's Evil and new Fist of Fury. Lee, what have you been watching this week?
Oh, yeah, only one film this week. It was a Kevin Costner film who's starring alongside Diane Lane. It's a modern-ish Western set in the 1960s. Costner plays a retired sheriff, and him and his wife live together with their son and his wife, who've just had a newborn baby. The son falls off a horse, he's killed, and then the movie cuts to 3 years later. The son's widow's moved on, married a new guy called Donny Weeboy. I couldn't help laugh at his name every time it came up, because obviously in the UK, well, in Scotland, Weeboy is a little boy, so it's a little bit of a derogatory term, really.
Or not well endowed.
Not well endowed, maybe. Yeah, a little bit of he's got a wee willy. So he turns out to be a bit of a wrong 'un, though, and he's a bit of an abusive husband. He's witnessed by the grandmother hitting his wife and hitting the grandson as well. And that very same night, they make off and basically leave town and go to Donnie's hometown in North Dakota, and that's all they really know is he's from North Dakota. And then they end up the rest of the movie is tracking them down, and it's slow for the first 40 minutes, but it really gets going at the end, and there's some good revenge violence in the last third of the film. I think you probably quite like it, Carl. I know you like your westerns.
You can't go wrong with a bit of Kevin Costner. Yeah, Kevin Costner, you cannot go wrong. I mean, if you remember his kind of winning streak from the early 90s, where he made Robin Hood and JFK and I'd argue, even as far as kind of Waterworld.
Don't mention Waterworld.
That's got to be a future episode, I think, of the.
I quite like Waterworld. Yeah. It was expensive, but yeah, it wasn't bad.
Yeah, Kevin Costner, when he's good, he's very good. And
it's a brand new movie. I mean, there's not been many good movies out this year. It's been obviously a bad, for obvious reasons. A lot of studios have been holding back the movies this year. But yeah, it's just come out, so check it out. It's called Let Him Go.
Let Him
What's your
Go.
thoughts on Field of Dreams? Are you a fan of that one? Field of
Field of
Dreams?
Dreams, yeah, a classic, absolutely brilliant
It's
film. Yes,
sentimental. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
Do you live your life like that? If you build it, they will come.
It worked in Wayne's World. Come on, bring it on.
It's true. So Lee, are you gonna summarize this baby for us?
Yeah, I'm going to go fairly brief for the synopsis of this one because it's not the most complex plot. So
it's quite a well-known film as well, isn't it? I mean, this
it's a
was
very
quite
well-known
well-known.
film.
You've probably
Yeah.
seen it, and if you're listening to it.
There's not too many spoilers here. So as the holidays approach, Clark Griswold, played by Chevy Chase, of course, wants to have a perfect family Christmas. So he pesters his wife, Ellen, played by Beverly D'Angelo. And his children have regenerated, of course. It's not the same children from the previous film. In fact, I think, Cal, you were saying they're much younger than the previous films, aren't they?
They basically swapped their ages because in the first two films, Rusty, the boy, is older than Audrey.
Yeah.
And in this film, they've kind of switched ages. So Audrey's older now, and Rusty has become the younger.
Yeah.
For reasons which are not really clear.
So the basic premise of the movie is trying to make sure everything is perfect. The tree, the house decorations, all got to be perfect. However, obviously things go astray very quickly. And the film, for me, really gets going when the hillbilly cousin, Eddie, played by the slightly crazy Randy Quaid, and his family show up. And we'll go into that in detail, I'm sure. Yeah. And his family show up unplanned and start living in their camper van on the Griswold property. And even worse, Clark's employers renege on their holiday bonus that he needs to build his pool in the back garden of the project. So it's just kind of Christmas gone astray. He wants the perfect Christmas, and there's lots of slapstick comedy. And of course, we'll go into it in detail, I'm sure, or we'll try to after having a few beers tonight. Yeah. So I know, Rob, you're a big John Hughes fan, but this isn't one of your favourite movies. What did you make of it?
It's a strange one because it was on VHS for me for years, and I watched it countless. I've actually got a hard drive which I use for work, and I've got Christmas Vacation on there. So it's not as though I'm anti this film. It's just that I watched it for the first time this week. I watched it last night actually with my head screwed on for this pod. Although it's not screwed on, it's not screwed on tonight. And the idea was, I was seeing the film differently for the first time, and just like some reviews of it, there's some gags which just don't land. And maybe it is an age thing, maybe because it's all slapstick. There's not much. Some of the best dialogue is given to Randy Quaid, and it's kind of like dismissed really. But he comes out with some of the funniest lines in the film. It's not a laugh out loud. You're not going to roll around. You will smile. You will feel quite warm and inside. But I think also I saw it differently because I'm a dad myself, and he's innately selfish throughout the film. he's completely jeopardized the family's well-being on this stupid swimming pool.
So
he's
also it was really funny that you kind of latched onto this and you thought, I relate to this.
I do relate to it.
It's kind of his obsessiveness about kind of doesn't draw me towards him. It kind of pulls me away.
The movie begins with a rather over-caffeinated Clark in the car singing along, and I know you well, obviously, Rob. We've known each other for a long time, and you're known for singing, particularly in the morning, being very, very enthusiastic. So I can see a little bit of Clark in you. I could see that scene playing out.
I am very manic. I currently have a thing going with my son at the moment, actually, where I sing the opening line, "It's beginning to look a lot like," and I pause and wait for him to say Christmas. And I've trained my own boy to do that. So I don't know. A bit like Clark Griswold. I don't know whether I'm passing on that mania.
The whole human tragedy starts to perpetuate itself once again.
It does, yeah. It's an infinity of madness in the world. But I mean, Clark, I read that John Hughes even said that he was getting a little bit tired himself, and he said that the film is a vehicle for Chevy Chase, and The other films, European Vacation and the first one, are more like an ensemble piece. They all have great bits in it. This one, Chevy does get the lion's share of the work, and he gets given a lot of time in the film. Whereas I say, like, one of the strongest characters in it is Cousin Eddie. When Cousin Eddie rocks up, the film really kicks into a second gear, and he's a lot of what he does and his actions and dialogue are great and very funny. But I read as well that there was a huge sequence cut out of the film, which was like Cousin Eddie and his wife living in the camper van, and apparently they used some of that footage in the terrible Christmas Vacation 2, which was like a TV movie they churned out a couple of years later, or a lot of years later with Randy Quaid in. But it's a shame, actually.
14 years later, to be precise.
it
2003,
14?
straight to video, I think. There's so much to unpick from the sequel title, because its entire name is National Lampoons Christmas Vacation 2, Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure. What has an island adventure got to do with fucking Christmas? It's ridiculous. I must say I haven't seen it, but from what I've read, it sounds pretty awful, really.
I mean,
Payday for Randy Quaid, sure.
Also, I think that all three of us were quite fair to films. We don't look at IMDb and see one out of 10 and think, oh, I'm never going to give that a go. We do give things a chance, but I read the premise for Christmas Vacation 2, and I really don't. It's going to take a lot for me to try that one out. I've never actually seen Vegas Vacation either.
I'm going to watch it tonight. I think I'm going to watch Christmas Vacation 2 tonight.
Are you going to go for it? Yeah.
I'll tell you what. If you cover Christmas Vacation 2, I'll take Vegas Vacation, because I've not seen that all the way through either. But from what I've heard, it's not good, and it was a contractual obligation that Chevy Chase had to fulfill with Warner Brothers.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So
is Chevy in Vegas Vacation? He's in that.
He is. Yeah, it's about 1997. Funnily enough, it doesn't have the affiliation of National Lampoon, so it's just Vegas Vacation. But it is the fourth kind of official entry in the series, and did come before Christmas Vacation 2, confusingly titled.
I mean, I go for quite a lot of the obscure. I tried to watch the Star Wars Holiday Special recently. And and it's on YouTube if anyone's interested. And I couldn't even make 5 minutes through it. The moment you would get introduced to Chewbacca and his weird, messed up puppet family, I had to turn it up. So
it's no wonder that Chewbacca flies around the fucking galaxy everywhere, doing different things. It's like he'd rather do anything apart from be at home with his fucking family.
Yeah, I mean, going back to this, I. Straight from the off, obviously because I'm a massive John Hughes fan, I recognise all the Hughes gags and nods to all his other films. He doesn't change much as a director or a writer. He's got his little gag references and his slapstick and his visual humour and his punchlines cut to another scene where the joke's finished. Because I read that somebody said that, I think it's Roger Ebert said on this film, that all the gags don't hit, and I wouldn't say that completely.
Yeah,
that's pretty harsh. I think most people love Christmas Vacation because it reminds them of, it's kind of like it's Clark's aspiring for the perfect Christmas, but all those Christmas cheesy images are there, like all the family gathered around the table. And if you want all your family around the table, it's going to be chaotic. It's not going to be pleasant. It's going to be argumentative. It's going to be difficult, and
that's true. That's one thing I think this film captures really well. Is just I wouldn't say the misery, but sometimes when you've got all your family around at your house, or you're around someone else's house, the pressure, getting on each other's nerves, and it's a real thing. And I think this film does capture that really, really well.
There's two ways of viewing it. When you were a kid, when you were viewing this film, you would have related to sort of Rusty character, wouldn't you, really? Being a bit embarrassed by your dad. And now as an adult, you've put on several Christmases, you know how stressful it is. So you relate to the Chevy, to Clark character, don't you?
I totally identify with this idea of the image. And you have to get past the idea of a perfect, because I tried hanging lights outside my house, and because I'm a coward, I couldn't go up to the top floor. So my house is like almost like a topless lady. It's she's wearing a skirt, but I couldn't put a blouse on because I couldn't get up the ladder because I was too nervous of falling.
All you need is a staple gun, simple ladder, and a tree behind you to catch you when you fall, Rob. You'll be fine. Don't worry.
That's what Clark has, doesn't he? And
If you're going to take anything away from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, that would be the lesson, I think.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's,
Lee, you've crystallised it perfectly there.
there's I mean this I think one of the criticisms maybe is that there's characters introduced where they don't get taken further. But you can't see this film in a really detailed sense. It's a light fare. It's a perfect film to sit back with a mince pie and then wrap your Christmas presents and it's on in the background. You wouldn't turn this film off if it came on. You'd sit and enjoy it.
Certainly not, but you do wonder why actors the caliber of E.G. Marshall and Diane Lane, who cast as the grandparents of Clark and Clark and Ella. Yeah, why I did wonder if perhaps these actors had some other scenes because they're brought in, they're billed in the credits, and they don't really have much to do. It's just they arrive. And they're kind of in the background, or they're sitting on chairs, or they maybe make a tiny comment at dinner. And
the best materials given to the Dotty aunt and uncle who turn up. Ellen's Dotty aunt and uncle, who are quite well-known actors as well. I mean the Dotty aunt. The uncle's wearing a wig and he's quite offensive and he smokes a stogie. Yeah, the old aunt as well, who basically wrapped the cat in present, wrapped up jelly. And she also, I read about her, she was the voice of Betty Boop. And because I read that before I watched the film, I couldn't get Betty Boop out of my head every time she spoke.
Yeah, that's true. She's Mae Questel, I think she was called. And even in her kind of advanced years as she is in the film, if you kind of don't look at her and listen, it's very much Betty Boop's voice, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's that, oh, boop, 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 boop. But that doesn't sound like that, by the way.
Just like it.
Just like that. But, yeah. It's,
she's here in the room with us.
I know, it's just she's there. But also, they stumbled. I mean, it's very early days. You've got Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who's playing like a yuppie next door with her partner. And they're like really, complete polar opposites to the Griswold family. Makes you wonder why these yuppies are living in this very suburban residential estate with families.
Yeah, especially without children. Surely they'd be living in the heart of Chicago, wouldn't they?
And she's not even the only Seinfeld cast member, is she? Because it's got Costanza's dad in it, George Costanza, Frank Costanza.
Oh, which bit's he in?
Who plays Clark's dad?
Oh,
yeah,
you're right.
I think he was the original. Yeah, the original Frank.
Oh, he was the original one before they replaced him with Ben Stiller's dad.
That's it.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's weird those scenes, isn't it? Because straight from the off, we get introduced the tension between the neighbours because Clark's got this massive tree and then the snobby neighbour shouts over Clark, "Where are you going to stick that tree?" And he shouts back, "Bend over and I'll show you." And he goes, "You've got a lot of nerve, Griswold, speaking to me like that." And he says, "I wasn't speaking to you." So he's speaking to Julie Louis-Dreyfus. But they don't really build on it, do they? There's a few little slapstick moments, like it's like Clark hanging off the roof and an icicle defies gravity. As Lee was mentioning earlier, actually, he said before we started recording this, Lee said that the icicle, even though the drain pipe is hanging down, the icicle managed to fly.
It's rocket propelled, isn't it? Yeah, it's absolutely lethal. Yeah,
it flies through the house next door.
God damn it! I want realism in my Christmas movies, and this is not realistic.
And it's also when the yuppies are just about to have sex, aren't they? They're about to have like a very strange, like a sensual moment, and then this icicle smashes up the stereo next door. But they don't go anywhere. I think there's a version of this film which is missing. Like it's got an extra 2 hours in it.
Anyone could have played those parts, couldn't they? It was kind of a wasted, really, wasn't it? Because she's quite a good comedic actress, really, isn't she?
She's excellent.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a waste because they kind of just heap these negative kind of situations on the yuppie couple, and there's no real kind of justification for it. Although they seem slightly, yuppie-ish and maybe a little bit unpleasant. It's almost kind of mean-spirited. All the things that happen to them, we don't really get the kind of context for it.
I would have loved a cutscene at the end of the movie where they've been like arrested or something by mistake by that SWAT team, or some kind of shenanigans has gone on at the end.
Yeah, why didn't that?
Yeah.
Also, it's weird because usually a director progresses with time as a writer as well. You get better over time, but like, because if you think about, Hughes often has two characters who really loathe each other, but then there's like a conflict and then a kind of mutual respect, which, like, if you think about Great Outdoors with Dan Aykroyd and who else is in that, John Candy, and then you think about Planes, Trains and Automobiles with Steve Martin and John Candy. In this one, you've got Clark and you've got the cousin Eddie, and it's just basically one way, isn't it? It's like Clark just lays into Eddie over and over. He talks about it like between gritted teeth. He says, "Is it okay? I get you another drink, Eddie. Is it okay if I drive you out into the middle of the desert and shoot you and leave you for dead?" And it's like there's not one. Eddie's so oblivious, isn't he? He doesn't even come round to it, which is kind of a disappointment. I think it'd be really nice actually if Eddie really just like stood up for himself once, just like really came back at Clark. Although Clark does get to be a hero, doesn't it? Because Clark agrees to buy Eddie's children lots of presents for Christmas.
That's true, but I think this was kind of a slightly missed opportunity from the film, because I think a few scenes where you kind of hark back to, oh, actually, what we're thinking about here is Christmas, and the entire plot with the cousin Eddie and his family, who've had to sell all their land, their home, and they're living in the RV. I think that probably had some more potential as a storyline to be kind of used in this Christmas film, and it's very, very easily resolved with cousin Eddie and Clark just visiting the supermarket, and Clark saying, "Oh, well, I'll buy your kids your Christmas present this year," and that's it. That's kind of that storyline's done with. I thought they could have maybe done a bit more with that.
They have that little interlude, don't they, all the way through, which Cal mentioned this before we started, where it cuts to an advent calendar, turning the days of counting down to Christmas.
It emphasises the episodic nature of the film in some regards. Yeah. I don't know if it was even necessary. If anything, it kind of takes you from one scene to another, and they're not connected.
No,
we have to be careful here, because I think we are sounding quite critical of the film, but I think it kind of does hold quite a special place in all our hearts, really, with this movie. It is the kind of movie that you would see on TV. I mean, we've probably all watched it 14 times. It's kind of the movie that, like you said, Rob, earlier, that it's on in the background. You can leave, you can make yourself a mulled wine. You're not going to miss too much of the plot. But I think there is a nice little message in there. It's kind of hidden in there a little bit in the. Did you notice the bit in the attic where he's watching his old cine films from the 50s, and he's in tears, and he kind of realizes that he's after this perfect Christmas, but he realizes that his own childhood wasn't perfect, and actually his parents kind of left him alone while they went out Christmas shopping. And he even has a little heartfelt moment with his dad later on, which I thought was quite nice, where he sort of says, "How did you do it, Dad? Our Christmases were such a mess." And he said, "I had a little friend called Jack Daniels." I thought that was a nice little line. So
they're both nice little scenes. The scenes where he gets locked in the attic, Clark, and he finds the old kind of cine reels that he projects. Yeah, that was a really nice little scene. I think those are probably the bits that are more directly related to John Hughes' original National Lampoons story, which was called Xmas 59 or Christmas 59. And if you look at the film reel that he puts in first, it's labelled with Christmas 59.
Yeah, because I think people might not realise, but National Lampoons originally was a magazine, wasn't it?
I think in America it's well known as a magazine, and possibly Canada, I don't know. But in the UK, when we got things like National Lampoon's Animal House, I think lots of cinema goers were probably thinking, what's National Lampoon? Because it wasn't a magazine that was available over here.
No. The only thing close we have over here is maybe kind of like Viz or something. That's kind of very
Viz or Private Eye or something. Yeah,
Private Eye is probably the closest, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. The closest thing we have to that, something coming out of something, is like the comic. What's the comic presents? What were they called with like Rick Mayo and Ed Edmondson?
Comic strip presents. Yeah. Comic strip presents. Yeah. I used to like that. Yeah.
So Comic Strip Presents was like if you American listens to this, it was like maverick English comedians at the time who all got together and produced and wrote their own films, and some of them are pretty decent. They've actually held it, and that's what a bit like National Lampoons has done. Like, it was all those. If you think about like John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd and all those guys, and all who burst out of this scene, it's a similar thing. Obviously, one's a bit more world famous, I suppose. Well, not supposed about it. It's far more world famous than Comic Strip.
And this was the last of the original, produced by the original team, wasn't it, in '89? I think the brand was kind of bought out by National Lampoon brand was bought out by other companies. And then you had really unrelated films, like you've got National Lampoon's Van Wilder, which is this like gross out sort of teen comedy.
With Ryan Reynolds. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it's the Rise of Taj, isn't there? Which is the Van Wilder 2.
Van Wilder. Yeah.
There's a bit in it where Clark is in a department store and he's shopping for lingerie for Ellen. And there's a rather attractive model in there who's helping him pick out his lingerie. Carl, do you want to lead with the model?
Okay, so her name is I found out, I didn't know what it was earlier, but it's Nicolette Scorsese. So she got quite a famous name. I don't think she's related.
She's not related.
In the scene that Lee just mentioned there, Clark's in there looking for some lingerie for some reason. I can't remember what. For Ellen, yes. She said that she's wearing the very lingerie that he's looking at, so she kind of gives him a very, very quick display of what the underwear looks like. At which point his son Rusty comes up to him and says, "Kind of, Dad, what are you doing?"
The whole scene's quite good, actually. I mean, I know it's a bit lewd, and the idea was supposed to be that, really, but there's a great bit where Clark keeps on stumbling over his words, doesn't he?
But I'm just blousing. I'm getting a bit nipply out there, and it's just like a mess of double entendres, isn't it, the whole way through?
And there's a point where he grabs some knickers to mop his brow, and then he tucks the knickers in his pocket, and then
it's something he probably would have done on Saturday Night Live.
What they suggest, a bit like in the first film, is that even though this is going on, they suggest that the women do find him adorable. Because if you remember in National Lampoon's Vacation, he keeps on seeing a really beautiful woman in a Ferrari. And there's a point where he gets...
Was it Christine Brinkley who... Did she go on to marry Billy Joel or something like that?
Yeah.
Billy Joel.
And then he gets in the pool with her naked, doesn't he, in that film? And then he chickens out. And in this film, she's also really charmed by him. And it's only when Rusty rocks up that, yes, because he even tells the woman behind the counter that his wife is dead, isn't it? He's shopping for underwear for his dead wife or something. And then Rusty rocks up and he has to pretend that, he just goes with it.
Can't see the line, can you, Rusty? Zoink.
And then he has a daydream. He has a daydream later on in the film where he's going to buy this pool with his Christmas bonus, and he's dreaming at night, looking out of the window. And then it's quite a funny scene, that actually, because you see like Randy Quaid really hamming it up, like with wearing a vest and on a diving board. And then of course you see her, the laundry woman, getting in the pool, and there's a slow reveal. And just as it's about to reveal, as a kid you would have been gutted. Just as it's about to reveal, a snivelly little kid, one of Eddie's children, goes, "Uncle Clark." It's just like,
"Are you Santa Claus?"
That's it, yeah. It was so reminded me of that scene. I don't know if anyone, hopefully people listening, have seen The Man with Two Brains. And there's a scene where Steve Martin, Dr. Huffer, is basically, he's so frustrated by his wife. And he's like, and she teases him. She always sucks his finger. And there's a scene where he's looking at the window and he actually hear the glass smash by his erection. And the scene just reminded me of that scene. It was so similar, but yeah.
And of course, all this stuff makes very little sense because Clark's wife, who's always kind of apologizing for him or sticking up for him or kind of suffering him. I mean, Beverly D'Angelo in his, I was talking to you guys before, she's like super hot. I mean, she's wearing this blouse later on, which kind of shows her cleavage, and goodness me, she's a very attractive woman. There's no question about that. I do wonder why he's, Nicolette Scorsese is very attractive too.
But isn't that the message that, you know, maybe that's the message which he has all the time, that even though you can be the family man and have everything in place that, you know, many people dream of, you always, I mean, Clark's aspirational, isn't he? He's got this beautiful house and a great family, and he's got, you know, what most people would kill for, and he's always daydreaming, isn't he? He wants to spend his Christmas bonus on a swimming pool, because
Yes.
it's like that extra level. He's always daydreaming about another woman. He's not going to do anything, but he daydreams, and that's so.
Yeah, you get the feeling that he didn't play the field really as a young man, do you? He kind of met Ellen early, and yeah, he has that element of his personality where he's always kind of like lusting after the Ferrari girl, and feels like he could have maybe, you know, caught a bigger fish maybe. But like you say, you know, Ellen's pretty hot.
Yeah, in European Vacation, I think one of the gags in it is that he accidentally on the video camera films him and Ellen having sex, and then the video gets released and ends up as a porno in Italy.
Yeah, I think it's just her in the shower actually. Although I don't think in the second one I don't think you see anything of her. But in the first one, there's another shower scene which she kind of has to endure, and I think she does kind of show herself off in that film in the first one. So if you're a Beverly D'Angelo fan, the first one's a one to watch. I was going to say Beverly D'Angelo actually ended up. I think she's now married to Al Pacino and has been for a number of years. So
Oh, is she? Wow.
yeah. You know, fair play to those two.
There's great chemistry between that. I mean, that's probably why the film's kept to being made, because there's great chemistry between Chevy Chase and Beverly D'Angelo. There's like, she calls him Sparky in the films and rubs his cleft in his chin, and
There's a really funny bit later on where the police kind of invade the house, or they kind of they leave. And she kind of, as a kind of defensive gesture, she kind of grabs his crotch. I don't know if you noticed this at all.
Yeah, I read some trivia about that, and that scene was completely ad-libbed. She
Right.
did it, and because it worked, they kept it. Of course, you know, it was, they were trying to make a family film.
Yes.
Obviously, there's an F-bomb in the film as well, which we'll mention in a bit, but when Clark's having a rant. But they were trying to make it a family film, and you have to go back to the 80s, late 80s, that you could get away with a lot more in a family film.
That's
You think
right.
about
Especially
you think about
this would have been a PG-13 in America, and because there's an F-bomb, there's probably a tiny bit of nudity, which would have kind of warranted that. But in the UK, this film had to be cut slightly because they wanted a PG certificate. So I think they lost the F-bomb, and also because Warner UK, I've got a bone to pick with Warner Brothers in the UK, because I remember seeing an advert for this in the paper. They released it in January of 1990 in the UK, and I remember seeing an advert for a film called National Lampoon's Winter Holiday. And I looked at it and I thought, I have no interest in going and watching that, so I'm not going to see that. It was only later on that I learned that this film was, because later in the year, this was released on VHS in the UK as National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. And it was only later in the year. Hang on, that's the film I saw advertised as Winter Holiday earlier in the year. And bloody hell, if I had known that was a vacation film, because I was already familiar with them by 1989, I would have seen the previous two. I was certainly going to see this at the cinema in the UK, but because they gave it they released it in January and they gave it the kind of alternate title, they changed the cinema artwork. There's a picture of Chevy Chase, not in Santa outfit, just in kind of general clothes, being electrocuted.
Yeah.
I didn't go to see it, and I certainly would have done had I known it was a vacation film, but the UK release didn't make that clear in any kind of way.
I mean, how bizarre anyway, because the fact is that the film opens up with Christmas Vacation as the title theme. I mean, it's a great Christmas song.
I love it, yeah.
Yeah, they open it with that, and they close the film with that. It doesn't go, this is winter holiday. It doesn't go like that, because it keeps on saying Christmas Vacation. It's such a good song as well.
A duller title than Winter Holiday. You know, what about Winter Madness or something like that? But Winter Holiday is just the
unless they were being woke before the time, you know, because now it's kind of, you can't really call things Christmas, can you? It's got to be It's got to be winter. It's a winter holiday.
The only reason
I
I
don't
didn't go
know.
to Christmas was they released it at the first week of January, and they thought, oh, okay, we'll make some extra cinema
Lame.
business. But we can't call it Christmas now because Christmas has been and gone. So
I don't. I
winter
would.
holiday.
I would definitely say John Hughes films are not woke. I'd also say that John Hughes films. I was thinking about this earlier because I do like John Hughes films, but he doesn't cast black characters, does he? He doesn't. In this age of Black Lives Matters and everything, I honestly cannot think of any major roles actually.
I have to say, you mentioned this, earlier. I it's not something that's occurred to me before, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm trying to think of John Hughes films I've seen.
He avoids it. He avoids it. He also avoids. He avoids. He doesn't mind Jewish characters. He avoids certain things. He has innocent. Well, and there's never innocent, is there? But in his early films, he has the slightly gentle racism. He has a Chinese character, and every time this Chinese character appears in 16 Candles, they play like da 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 whenever he appears, and there's none of that in this film, in Christmas Vacation, but there are, but yeah, there are certain things about him. As much as I like John Hughes, and there's like a cozy nostalgia to John Hughes, there's certain things he avoided doing, which
So,
I
Rob,
think if he,
is this a John Hughes thing, or is this a movies of the 80s and 90s thing?
it could be both, couldn't it? And therefore, maybe I'm only more self-aware now because, of course, it's such a, the whole we're a bit more, aware now with everything taking place with Black Lives Matter and everything. Maybe that's why I started noticing it in 80s films. But one of the things I noticed in 80s films as well, like I mentioned earlier, is it's how much you could get away with. I made the mistake of like in this film, if I was sitting down with my boy who's only 6, I was sitting down with him, and there's that scene with the woman and the sexual scene in the department store, and then there's the F bomb. It'd be awkward. It's a bit like if you think about a family film like Goonies. I remember once making the mistake of putting that in front of children, and I think in the first few minutes it's got some bullying, where they bully Chunk, and then after the bullying, they use like piss and shit, and there's a bit where they snap a penis off a statue. I think this is all like in the first 15 minutes of the film. So
That's right.
you just
Rob, you're right about that because I watched. I let my children watch Spaceballs recently, and the UK version must have had one F bomb cut out of it for years. But I was not aware of this, and we watched a version on, I don't know if it was Prime or some other streaming service. And I let them watch it, thinking, "Oh, it's a PG film." Anyway, later on in the film, Rick Moranis, who plays Dark Helmet, comes out with what did he say? Something like, "Fuck, even in the future, nothing works."
yeah.
Obviously, delivered much better than
I
that.
think we don't realize what a conservative country we live in because for years porn it was banned, wasn't it? I mean, it's kind of still technically is, isn't it? In the UK, it's not really allowed in the UK, but we do live in such a conservative land, don't we? I think was it David Cameron was trying to get a law passed where it would block all porn on UK internet or something,
Yeah, that's right. But then what would the Tory MPs do during the day?
Exactly. They're probably the biggest users of it, the dirty bastards.
Wasn't the law that he was the only person allowed to receive porn in the country, and
Yeah.
everyone else was blocked?
Well, there's a well-known story with him and a pig, but I won't get into that now.
No, yeah.
It was not PG.
Pigatio. Oh, we've gone political. This is the first. But,
Oh dear.
actually, should we talk? We've mentioned we've skirted around the F bomb a few times. Should we talk about that scene? Because I'll come up with my geeky facts I've read about it. There's a great scene where Clark realizes he's not going to get his Christmas bonus. He's just, instead of the bonus, he gets
Jelly of the Month Club.
Jelly of the Month Club voucher, and he's got all his family gathered around him, and he's been building it up how much he's going to get his bonus, and it doesn't work out for him. And he has this massive rant. And if you watch the rant, it's only after I read this fact I watched the rant differently, because apparently Chevy couldn't remember his lines. So you had all the cast, Beverly Angelo said this in an interview, all the cast had to hold up these boards with his lines on, and he didn't read them in order. So if you watch his rant, it's quite a good rant, and it's quite funny, and that's why the F word comes in and stuff. He basically just like his eyes are flicking left to right as he's reading these boards, and he's shouting different insults about his cheap boss. It's a great scene.
Where do you think you're going? Nobody's leaving. Nobody's walking out on this fun, old-fashioned family Christmas. No, we're all in this together. This is a full-blown 4-alarm holiday emergency here. We're gonna press on, and we're gonna have the happiest Christmas since Bing Crosby tap danced with Danny fucking Kaye. And when Santa squeezes his fat white ass down that chimney tonight, he's gonna find the jolliest bunch of assholes this side of the nut house. Hey! If any of you are looking for any last-minute gift ideas for me, I have one. I like Frank Shirley, my boss, right here tonight. I want him brought from his happy holiday slumber over there on Melody Lane with all the other rich people, and I want him brought right here with a big ribbon on his head. And I want to look him straight in the eye, and I want to tell him what a cheap, lying, no-good, rotten, four-flushing, low-life, snake-licking, dirt-eating, inbred, overstuffed, ignorant, blood-sucking, dog-kissing, brainless, dickless, hopeless, heartless, fat-ass, bug-eyed, stiff-legged, spotty-lipped, worm-headed sack of monkey shit he is. Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
Clark at his manic best. I think that him and Randy Quaid, you know, when they go off, is probably my favourite points of the movie, really. But yeah, to be honest, that F-bomb surprised me because I think I've always kind of watched it on TV, and we always get the lame censored version, don't we? So I don't think I've ever really watched it on proper on DVD, really. So yeah,
unless you see the full version, you don't know. So for years we were thinking that Chevy Chase had said, dancing to Danny Dancing Kaye. They replaced talking with dancing, and
he's not new to this, is he? I mean, John Hughes is not new to it. Anyone who's seen Planes, Trains and Automobiles knows the car rental scene where Steve Martin swears. He says the F word about 20 times in a row, and it's a great scene. But the version that we had on British TV, it's really weird. All they did for the F words is just silence them out.
I think if you look at YouTube, there's a version that is that they use for American TV as well, which is the same scene but without the F words, and it just has none of the impact. It's really strange.
Yeah, so it's in John Hughes. He likes to do this, and this is a family film. He knew he was making a family film. But maybe the rules were that loose. Maybe he thought, I'll put the F word in. Or maybe Chevy Chase put the F word in, and then they just, thinking it would be caught anyway. But it wasn't caught.
I'm surprised there was no weed where somebody kind of smokes a joint and starts punching the air and getting really excited.
That's funny. I think there's a weed smoking scene in the first Vacation film where they go to meet Randy Quaid and the.
There is, yeah. Like you said, the best moments with Chevy as an actor, if anyone's seen like Fletch and things, is when he does manic. Is like, he reminds me in that sense like Gene Wilder when he goes manic. They are the bits you can't overdo those scenes because you'd expect it, and you don't want to see someone hyper all the time. But we don't. It's a good scene actually. The rants. It's funny. And he makes the mistake, does he, at that point of telling. He shouts out to the heavens, "What I'd want for Christmas is my boss wrapped in a ribbon and brought to this house in his PJs." And of course, he said this near cousin Eddie. So that's where we get to the end sequence. It's what you get. So it's Eddie goes out in his mobile home and goes and gets his boss and brings him home in a big ribbon. And it reminds me, the scene, the end scene is so similar to the first Vacation film, is it? If anyone remembers that, where they go to Wally World and the police all turn up, and it's the same on this one. The police all swing into the house, surround Clark and his family.
His boss has a very sudden Scrooge moment. He doesn't need to be visited by the ghost of Christmas past, does he? He just needs one impassioned speech by Clark, really, about being dicked over on his bonus, and he's completely changed of heart.
It is the 80s ideal, isn't it, of these seemingly grumpy bosses who you just have to chip away at, and underneath they're really nice and soft. It's like, like the big boss who seemingly on the outside, and then he starts playing piano with Tom Hanks and he's lovely. And it's the same in this film. It's like, and the same in the first film and the first vacation film. There, actually, his wife tells him off, doesn't he? Because he kept it from his wife that he was actually not doing the bonuses, and then she's actually calls him cheap, and then he suddenly says, instead of you're going to get your bonuses back and you're going to get 20% on top. It's like he's the kindest, sweetest boss in the world, isn't it? And Clark's going to get his swimming pool, which is apparently the dream, isn't it?
And I suppose it is quite poignant these days, isn't it? Because that kind of total point of capitalism has been lost, hasn't it? That there's a human element to the people that work for these large corporate companies, and that's kind of been lost now. It is all about cutting the bottom line, isn't it? And this is a bit of a throwback that his boss even considers that an option.
It's also the idea of bonus culture, isn't it? I mean, a lot of companies don't do bonuses now, so it's kind of is that very nostalgic thing that your bonus was almost like doubling up your salary. But I know we've mentioned some of the shortcomings of the film, but going on at the strengths of the film are that if you like Chevy Chase, you're going to love this film, and if you saw this film when you were a kid, it's hard not to like it. I mean, I still enjoy it. I still put the film on occasionally, and if it was definitely on in the background, I'd sit and watch it again and again. It's.
I was going to say we have one last crazy scene, don't we? Which is possibly the most bizarre scene of the movie, and it was set up. It was telegraphed very early on, wasn't it? With the I'm filling up the shitter, I'm emptying out the shitter, wasn't it? Earlier on, and Clark's like, "Oh, that's going to cause an explosion later on in the movie because, the gas shouldn't, that gas shouldn't be put straight into the sewer like that. That's going to cause an explosion at some point in the movie." And indeed, we get one, don't we, from Lewis's his uncle Lewis
Stogie.
Stogie, that errant Stogie gets into trouble again, and we get a complete nuclear explosion outside the Griswold house.
And it makes the Clark's over-the-top reindeer and Santa display outside take off, and it flies across the moon almost like something out of E.T., doesn't it?
It gives Cousin Eddie's children the chance to see kind of reindeer flying through the sky because they were told earlier in the film that Santa Claus wasn't going to come. Yeah. There they have it. They've got their kind of presents presumably because they had the supermarket scene earlier on, and now they get to see the reindeer flying through the sky as well.
Yeah, and then the music kicks in again, which is like I was thinking about the soundtrack because it wasn't released as a soundtrack, and the soundtrack is actually pretty decent. It's got the usual Christmas fare in the middle, that great theme which was written for the film, but they only use it twice. They use it right at the beginning where there's like a cartoon animation as well, which is really good.
Great animated in this film, yes.
It's really funny, the cartoon at the beginning, and it reminds me a lot of the Pink Panther cartoons, the style of it. And then is there a cartoon? I don't think there is a cartoon at the end.
No, not
no. It's just but the music just kicks in again, doesn't it? And that's your law.
It ends with Clark saying, "I did it," and then it just cuts to the end. Yeah, I was expecting. I don't know. I obviously don't remember there being a cut scene, but it felt like it needed a cut scene at the end there with something, some goof.
I
think the family should together. Why the ending kind of makes it seem like it's all about Clark and his kind of obsessive pursuit of the perfect Christmas, but really it should have been, I think, the family should have got together.
Yeah, he was stood on his own, wasn't he? I thought that was a bit weird, wasn't it? It was just kind of a moment of self gratification, when he could have been stood.
But then you've got to wonder how much influence Chevy Chase wielded during the production of this, because a lot of it seems to be kind of based around his character as opposed to the...
There is a troubled past, isn't there, with the film? I mean, originally Chris Columbus was supposed to direct it, and he walked off set, even though Chris Columbus at the time was on his uppers. He was quite poor and he was struggling, and he basically needed this film to pull pulling himself out of this, and he couldn't stop.
His story, Chevy Chase was
such an a-hole.
Treated him so badly. He literally said, like, he treated him like dirt. I don't want to work with this person.
And it worked. It worked out, of course, because John Hughes gives him Home Alone like a year or so later. So it kind of
that's right. That led to Home Alone, and I think he ended up directing Harry Potter films as well. It worked out quite well for Chris Columbus, not having directed this one. The director of this was Jeremiah Chechik.
Yeah.
And don't know. He did some other films later on, but I think his most notable film was the film of the Avengers from 1998, which was like a
Oh,
colossal
that's a shocker.
box
Yeah.
office bomb flop.
Mm.
But that was another film that he directed. So I think Chris Columbus, generally speaking, probably got the better deal of the two of them.
It did, although
No.
we have to say that this film has become a modern classic in a way. It's like if you type in, or go away if you listen to this and just type in great Christmas films on the internet, and
It will be there.
it will be in the top. It's at least in the top 20s of almost every single list, alongside Holiday and like The Bishop's Wife and It's a Wonderful Life is usually number one, but it's definitely up there.
And rightly so. I mean, it will trigger 80s Christmas memories for anybody who watches this. I mean, I said myself, I mean, if I was picking like a 12 Days of Christmas movie run, I would have this in my 12. It's not top tier, it's not top 10, but it's maybe just outside, top 12. But we'll get into that in a bit. Carl, you're our resident numbers man. I mean, regular listeners will know you tend to run through the numbers. Have you got the numbers to hand on this one?
And you can't argue with these numbers because the budget for this was $25 million and the box office worldwide was $73 million. So not a huge profit, but they're making millions on this third installment of the Vacation franchise, which actually made more money than the second installment, quite a bit more. I think the second one only made about 50 million.
Yeah.
So again, this third one would have made the Warner Brothers think, okay, well, we need to make a fourth. So certainly it was received well. Lots of people went to go and see it. I expect because it was in the VHS era that when it came out the following Christmas for VHS, especially in the UK, when I saw it the first time, people would have said, "Oh, actually, it's not Winter Holiday; it's Christmas Vacation." Right? Well, let's rent this title out. We'll watch it. It would have made a lot more money there too. So yes, it's certainly a box office success, if not a kind of the smash of the year, but it certainly made a profit and a good healthy one as well.
So what's it gonna be, boys? Does this one rot in the morgue or make it on the helicopter to freedom?
I've got a clue of where we're going to go with it, but I could not put this in the morgue. I could not put Clark and his 1,000 lights on his house in the morgue because it is nostalgic, but it's not just nostalgic. It's got some real charm to it still, and it really does hit the nail on the head of the family man trying to do the right thing, but it not quite working out. And it has got a bigger message than just the gags. Yes, the other characters would have been nice, like for Randy Quaid to being given a bit more screen time, and because he's great when he comes into it, and for maybe the film to be a vacation and they actually go on a Christmas vacation would have been good, but apart from that, yeah, it's I don't use this word often. It's a lovely film actually. It's just nice. It's not going to have you cracking up and rolling around the floor so you can't speak, but you're definitely going to smile. You're going to you maybe not guffaw, but you're going to smile and you're going to grin. And at the end of the film, you don't feel that dissatisfied. I've seen a lot of Christmas drops. I love Christmas, and I do watch a lot of those terrible TV movies at Christmas where him and her get together. So I would say this film definitely escapes the morgue. Chevy gets on the helicopter, decorates it in 1,000 Christmas lights. Of course, he brings the lovely Beverly with him, and they live happily ever after. so it's definitely not going in the morgue for my liking.
Sure. I mean, for me, this film is not. It's not top tier Christmas film. Having said that, this film I've seen many times, and it was a favourite in our house. We often used to watch it. Or if it was on TV, we'd watch it. And I love the Randy Quaid character. He's so crude, and his line when he's there out in his underpants outside the house, he was saying the shit is full, and just completely oblivious to everything else. It's just so funny, and I really relate to that. that's just such a brilliant scene. It makes me laugh so much. I think Randy Quaid kind of steals the show a little bit. And yeah, there aren't big laughs. There are a few laughs here and there, and I don't think it really kind of communicates the message of Christmas very well, and it's a bit episodic in nature. But I think overall, I'm a fan of the 80s. I think Chevy Chase is a funny guy, despite what you hear about him on various film sets. There's no question that in the right film, he's funny. He's a talented person, and he's funny in this. He's talented, and it's a good film. And just for the nostalgia value alone, and the kind of the quality of the animated credits and the title song by Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, which they use a couple of times in the film. There's no way it has its problems, but there's no way I can send this to the morgue. I would estimate I'd probably watch this once every year. Easily.
Yeah.
For me, I can't send it to the morgue. It's not the best Christmas film, but it has certain qualities, and it's a perennial for me. So that I can't send it to the morgue. No chance. I don't know if I'd send it on a helicopter to freedom, but it just has to kind of exist. It has to be there around in its fully uncut 12 rated version with the F-bomb.
Yeah.
No way. It needs to stay out of the morgue and exist.
I don't think the zombies would want to go near Clark's house anyway. It'd be too bright for them. It would dazzle them.
They wouldn't want to go there. There's too many explosions and things like that. They wouldn't like that.
Explosions would probably attract the zombies initially, but they'd probably leave in a ball of flames, wouldn't they? Yeah, I think they'd be safe.
Depends on the kind of zombies that you're talking about. They do differ from film to film.
Yes, that's true. That's very true.
So Lee, are you slamming it in the morgue, Lee?
Well, it's not the deciding vote, but for me, yeah, it does have a special place. I was the one who suggested it. After all, I think it is one that's on the regular rotation in our house every Christmas. I think I like it because you can relate to it. I think everybody's had a Christmas gaff. Obviously, as a child, you relate to Rusty being embarrassed by his embarrassing dad. But as you get older, you get something else from the film. You kind of relate to Clark's character a little bit. The Christmas is extreme. Putting on Christmas is extremely stressful if you've never done it. And definitely, at some point, if you do it enough, you're going to hit a problem or two, which I think we all have got. And I think there is I know, Cal, you said there isn't a nice Christmas message there. And I know at the end he stood on his own, which I disagreed with. But I think there is a kind of nice message in a way. And it's extremely poignant at this time of year. And particularly what's gone on this year is many people are not going to see their loved ones this year. A lot of people are making the smart decision of not seeing the loved ones, obviously because of COVID. And obviously it's important. The greatest thing of Christmas is seeing your family, spending time with your loved ones. And I think that message is there in bits during the movie, although Chevy Chase's ego gets in the way a little bit. But there is plenty of comedy all the way through. Randy Quaid, his box office. If you haven't seen his Trump video where he with the crazy lights, he's like, "Fox News, they killed the golden goose." If you've not seen that, check it out. It's box office.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And there's a lot. There's stuff that you just don't get in modern movies that I always have time for. You don't get the kind of moment where he looks to his son and he's you don't see the line, Randy, do you? You just don't get that in modern movies now. So nostalgia by the bucket load. It's not the greatest movie of all time. It's not a top tier. It's not even the best John Hughes's Christmas movie, is it? It's not
the best vacation movie.
It's not
either.
the best vacation movie. I mean, some would say it's the second best, maybe the third best. Who knows? But on a 12 Days of Christmas, it's been in my rotation of probably the top 12 Christmas movies of all time, and it's going to cut a long story short, it's going to be flying on the sleigh to freedom. It's going to be exploded across the moon, with Santa and his reindeer and everybody hanging onto the back of it. It's exploding across the sky to freedom, and there's no zombies in sight. Zombies shut down for Christmas. So yeah, all good. We've got 3 freedom votes for this movie.
Yeah, so it's another one which escapes the morgue, so it doesn't have to rot behind in the land of pay dirt and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I just want to also say, like, we've not said it to everyone, but thank you for everyone who is listening. So it's Merry Christmas to everyone from all of us. This one's about.
Yes, Jesus greetings to all, and whichever kind of background you're from, or however you're celebrating this time of year, make sure that you're having a good time and being respectful to everybody and keeping safe.
Yeah, definitely.
Look after each other, have a few beers, try and relax, and it'll be better next year. So keep safe, everybody. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. See you all. Bye.